Welcome back, everybody, to the Oz Bodybuilding Podcast. And today I'm joined by IFBB athlete Monique. How are you today?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. So you are current just 3 weeks post show. You competed at state and national in the bikini division. How are you kind of feeling? 3 weeks post show.
Look, it's been a massive adjustment. I've had to really reorientate all of my goals and fill my day with other activities apart from cardio and weight training and
Yeah,
protein. But we're getting there and it's getting better every day.
that's good. Would you say it's been a bit of a struggle, kind of like readjusting to, I guess, like everyday life? Because, you're not necessarily, like you're saying, that base routine of wake up, your meals have got to get in, you got to train, you got to do cardio, you got to hit this. So it's like, I guess, restarting a new structure based on what you got to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel as though having a comp to look forward to, you kind of had a purpose
Yeah.
in your day. And now that kind of I've lost that, it's quite hard to stay motivated and get other things done. But I think it's just important to have other hobbies and other important things in your life. So like uni or
Yeah.
work, things like that.
Just to kind of like refocus yourself, create a new goal into play until you kind of get it back to that, focusing on the stage again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what kind of are you happy with both packages? Because it is your first kind of showing. So I'm interested to kind of hear your point of view from like the package you bought to state to then the package you bought to nationals. Because you placed second, hey, at a new state show with first timers.
Yeah,
Was
so
it
I
not?
came second in novice and first
Yeah.
timers, and then third in overall at the state show. I was incredibly happy with that package, but I do know that I came in a little bit watery, and my core wasn't as tight as I wanted it to
Mhm.
be. So I was a little bit naughty with the foods that I was having in the week before because I was on macros my entire
Yeah.
prep. So I was under the impression that my tummy could sort of tolerate anything in that peak
Yeah.
week. And I was definitely wrong. So for the nationals, I changed to a bro diet.
Yeah.
Um, Kept everything really simple, and I was so happy with my core and how everything looked. And I think I just came in overall tighter for the national show.
Yeah.
So despite everything, I was so proud of both packages,
Mhm.
and I honestly could not have come up with a better outcome. Like I was so happy.
That's I think that's like really important that you're able to kind of walk away happy because that's funny that you kind of said that is because it's been that really big conversation lately, especially in peak week or even people who haven't dieted or done a show yet, and it's kind of like, oh, when it comes to a refeed day or a cheat day, or is it okay if we have this or that? But it's kind of like, you know, what's hard about, your macros is kind of if you're just going off that, you feel like you can get away with little things like that. But when you've been dieting for so long and
Mm.
everything's kind of been the same all the way through, even just like one little extra change, where there could be a sauce or it could just be, or instead of, rice, I'm gonna, get potatoes, and it can really like fuck everything up. So I guess it's good that you kind of, you know, experienced that and noticed what it kind of has done. And then you were able to also then make the improvements for the national show and then be more happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I really liked about the state show. The stakes are obviously a lot lower, and you can kind of trial run your peak week protocol and the foods that you've eaten, and you know what works for you and what you need to change. And then you can just implement all those changes a couple of weeks later. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really appreciated that.
Good learning experience for yourself for the next time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you like I'm a fan, so I was a little bit disappointed that you kind of it's hard to say like I'm finding bikini so like I'm still learning what the exact Pacific thing is that they're looking for, And I just find it, with the amount of caliber that we have, like I think, in Australia, like the bikini division is probably, better than, some, well, at least the amount of high caliber athletes are, higher than, in my opinion, the men and then other female divisions. So I'm intrigued by kind of experiencing it. What is your point of view of, like, I don't want to say you got overlooked, but I do feel like you're saying you definitely brought in a lot more tighter package. I felt like, because I think I saw the judges' feedback was they wanted you to have more glute and ham tie-in. And I was really shocked by that because I thought you had a really good, in comparison to, I guess, some other first timers or, doing their first show. That was something that kind of always stood out to me that you had in comparison was that glute and ham tie-in. So what is kind of, I guess, your take on that, or how you kind of perceive that the judges' feedback?
Yeah, I was really confused by the feedback. So for my state show, I got told that my glutes were too big.
Yeah.
And then in the nationals, they then wanted more of a glute ham tie-in. Um, the only way you can really produce more of a glute ham tie-in is by either making the glutes larger
Yeah.
or by being more lean. And I felt like I was very much on the brink of being too lean
Too lean, yeah.
for the bikini division. And so I actually thought that I had been marked down significantly because of how lean I was.
Mm.
So when I got the feedback about the glute ham tie-in, I was just really confused. And it kind of makes it hard to then make improvements for the next season, especially because the two sets of feedback were
So different.
predicted each other. Yeah.
Do,
So yeah, it was quite disappointing.
yeah. Something that I just came into my head then was, do you think that it has to do with the average? So, for example, at the state show, let's say the average of bikini athletes were not as full glutes. So then, things like, okay, you having fuller glutes kind of, you got marked down a bit for that because the average were not so full. Where at, I guess, nationals, because you had so much more athletes compared to the States, and, so that things like the fuller glutes with the, strong ham tie and that, do you think that could have been a possibility? Because it's weird when you're judging a show like that, because there's a lot of talk about the moment of like, oh, in my opinion, I felt that the men's show, they were aiming a lot, to do with mass compared to, overall maybe symmetry or even conditioning. And I was having a conversation with someone, and the more that I thought about it was kind of, I guess, when you really look at it though, the average of competitors, you could say they were all kind of on the mass side. So, I guess, because it's hard being a judge in that sense. You kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, they have to look at what like the athletes are in front of them and determine who fits the bikini category best out of those athletes. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
What has so seeing that had been kind of like your first showing, what has been like your biggest highlight from either, show day or even just the comp prep in general? Like what has like stood out for you, like in reflection, actually, you've had those 3 weeks to kind of, readjust to normal life and kind of look back on everything that's happened, because you're so focused and you kind of can get distracted from like being in the moment.
Totally. I think one of the highlights is probably a lot of the girls that I've met along the way. So because this was my first show, I didn't really know anybody in the bodybuilding community. And just throughout the year, I had a lot of girls who started following my Instagram, sending me messages and how they were inspired by me.
Yeah.
Or how it motivated them to keep going through prep. And I just made a lot of really good friendships. And then being able to see those girls either at the state show or nationals, it was just a really awesome experience. And one of my reasons for doing the comp in the first place was to meet like-minded people. So the fact that I made so many friendships was just, yeah, definitely one of the highlights.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a win. That's interesting. Like, it's so important. It's very hard, especially, I guess, when you're into bodybuilding, but even just in general in life, to, it's very hard to find like-minded people, like you're kind of saying, I struggle with that a bit myself. So, it's always kind of like, oh well, we got to put ourselves out there. Where do we kind of go to meet like-minded people? And I guess like it's good to hear that you took that step, jumped on stage, were able to fulfill maybe a passion, or create a passion for it. But then in return, you also then, like you're saying, meeting like-minded people. And I think that's something that I've even noticed with the community itself, especially, is like the moment I feel like before you do a show, you kind of know people, you follow people, but people don't know you. And then as soon as you do a show, then it's like everyone that you've kind of followed or looked at now kind of knows you, and then you kind of get really welcomed, open arms. I think it's such a positive thing, as well as um, it's special. Like it's warm. Like you don't feel kind of like it is can be very isolating, but at the same time you feel very welcomed.
Yeah, totally. I remember I was following a lot of the season A girls, and just slowly a couple of them started following me back, and it was just the most humbling experience to be recognized by some other athletes. Especially like Florence was
Yeah,
one of my role models. She was probably the main kind of role model that I had leading into the season B show and leading to my decision to actually compete. And when she started following me, it was one of the best days ever. I
nah,
was fangirling so hard.
I can understand that. That's like, when I started this up and started the Instagram and that, and like I had been following all these people like on my personal for years and years, and then watching them all kind of like follow me back, even though like it wasn't my personal, it was just kind of like a really cool thing. It was like, oh wow, this is awesome. So I can only imagine your case, like someone that you kind of looked up to like leading in is kind of then following you back and then giving kind of the recognizing you as an athlete.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was really humbling, and it just sort of kept motivating me to keep going. Like
Yeah.
obviously I'm doing something right. So I've got to just keep going,
Keep
push through to
going,
the end.
get the
Yeah,
momentum going.
that's it.
So on the flip side of that, then what's kind of been, I guess, maybe the biggest learning curve that you've had, or something that you kind of, really struggled with during the prep?
Mm. So it would probably have been like missing out on all of the social
Mm,
events. So yeah, obviously with prep, you can't really eat out or go drinking or anything like that with your friends. And then you also need to prioritize recovery. So you don't necessarily want to stay out late.
yeah,
Because the longer that you're awake, the hungrier that you get, the less sleep that you get. And then ultimately that'll just make you hungrier the next day. So it's just this, yeah, a really fine balance of being able to sort of, yeah, you just got to sacrifice all these
yeah,
social events just because you need to prioritize your recovery and your eating and your training. And I had a few events where I had to actually like go sober, and just being surrounded by everyone having fun, just being able to eat a cheese platter, and I'm sitting there eating my cherry tomatoes and my blueberries because I need to just be putting something in my
yeah.
mouth at the same time. So, yeah. And then you just kind of feel a little bit isolated in that sense. Like you're surrounded by everyone, but you can't really do the same activities that they're doing. So, that was definitely the hardest part, I think.
Yeah. No, that definitely I think is a very big common factor for a lot of people, especially I guess you kind of even if you haven't done a prep before, like you kind of understand that that's going to happen, but I feel like it's really different until it actually does. Like you can prepare for it, but until you're in the moment, at an event like you're saying, and you're watching everyone around you kind of just eating away or drinking away, and you're kind of like, I want to be having fun, but you also then have no energy, and it's just kind of like, oh fuck, and that's that isolating moment, I guess. But
Mm.
I think the important factor, the flip side of that is, having a group of friends that maybe can understand, or or get where you're coming from, or support you in a different way. Were you able to kind of have a circle like that going into this prep?
Yeah, I am so lucky. All of my friends are incredibly supportive. And So rather than being asking me, oh, Mon, do you want to go out for dinner? They'll ask me to come over and say, you can bring your meal prep, or we'll go for a walk and we'll just go get coffees.
Yeah.
So all of my friends like were messaging me constantly. They always wanted to catch up. They always accommodated to what I could do. And so in that kind of sense, I felt very lucky because I know that some people don't have that support network. And I definitely had some great friends around me.
No, that's amazing. I think it's really, important. I guess it also that saying of like when you begin that bodybuilding journey, you kind of see who your real friends are in that sense, people that can accommodate to your needs or, make sacrifices as well. Like I think it's really good to hear, you have those friends that instead of going, oh, let's go get breakfast, oh, hey, let's just go for a walk, because you need to get your steps in and we can grab a coffee because you can have that. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, and I think as well, this has kind of been my lifestyle for a while. So ever since starting medicine, obviously I wasn't able to sort of work as much. And so just to save money through my first couple of years of uni, I would always like ask my friends to do these kind of activities. So it was already something that they were kind of used to. And I think they actually started to enjoy it as well because it encouraged them to adopt a little bit of a healthier lifestyle as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I think I primed them pretty well for 2 years before I decided doing the comp. So
That's awesome. Creating good habits and influences.
that's it.
So you're saying you're studying medicine. I see that you do you have the degree for exercise and sports science, or is that so you have that degree and then you're also studying what form of medicine, just in general or nutrition side?
Yeah, so I finished my Bachelor of Exercise Sports Science in 2016. And then I did like a research year as part of that as well. And then now I'm doing postgraduate medicine. So essentially, it's just a slightly shorter degree. So 4 years instead of six,
Yeah.
because it recognizes those
What
first,
you've done in the other one.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the undergrad degree. Yeah. So, this degree is kind of like a general medicine degree. And then once you graduate, you start working in the hospitals.
Okay.
And then you continue your training and then you'll specialize once you've already started working. So you kind of study on the job,
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So what was the studying came first? So uni and like so the sports science. So that all kind of came first before bodybuilding, or were you always kind of an athlete and interested, and then because you were interested in sports and exercise and how the body works, you studied that, or you were into the sport and bodybuilding first, and then you decided to get a degree? Kind of, I just like, yeah, run me through which
Yeah.
came first and how it all fell into place.
Well, it's actually kind of funny. So I was always active as a kid
Yeah.
because my dad was really supportive. So I used to play tennis and we used to go cycling all the time. But then as I grew older, like through my teenage years, of course, I got a little bit bratty and I didn't want to do that anymore. I just wanted to hang out with my friends. And I actually didn't exercise or play sport for a few years.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was actually my older sister who encouraged me to do exercise and sports science because I wanted to do a master's of nutrition and dietetics.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that the pathways worked, you either did exercise and sports science or health science. And
Yeah.
she just advised me that exercise science would be a lot more interesting. And then once I did exercise science, I started to learn about all of the benefits of exercise. And I was like, I'm an idiot. Why aren't I doing this? And then I met my partner at the time, I think halfway through my first year.
Yeah.
And he then dragged me to the gym.
Uh,
So yeah, he taught me basically everything that I knew, all of the fundamentals,
yeah.
helped me grow a lot of confidence in the gym. And then I kind of fell in love with it ever since. And so that was like 8 years ago now. And I've
Crazy how
never
time
looked
flies.
back. Yeah.
So then was it something that you always kind of wanted to do, was to step on stage, or was that, like you're saying, it really did stem from kind of wanting to meet new people, and that was kind of the backbone what led to it? Like, did you ever, while you're getting into the gym, did you know about bodybuilding, or were you interested in it, or was it just kind of something that you'd hear about?
So I had, when I first started training, I had a few people come up to me at the gym and say that I should compete.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, you may, like, they asked me if I was competing, and they like said, well, why aren't you? And I always sort of blew it off. I was like, oh no, I love food too much. Like, I live to eat. And once COVID happened, I think not going to the gym for that prolonged period of time really made me miss it a
Yeah.
lot. And then when I got back into the gym, I was like, I really want to level up and have a goal or something to work towards in the gym.
Hmm.
And then I think that's what kind of prompted me to look into bodybuilding a little bit more. And then at that time, I had like been seeing all the girls on the Olympia stage. So I was like following Laura Lee. And then I found a lot of the season A girls like
Yeah.
Florence. And after watching them for a little while, I was like, no, this is definitely something that I want to do. And then by about May this year, I just decided, stuff it. Like I'm just gonna go all
Do
in.
it. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely I'm really glad I made the decision. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely something, a way to get out of your comfort zone. It helps to build confidence. It's an exercise of discipline, and there's just been so much mental growth that I've gone through
Mm.
as a result of competing. So I'd never look back.
No, that's good. No, I agree. I agree. I think there's a lot of benefits that can kind of really come out of it, and taking that step. And I think at the same time, is like, if it's something that you're always on a fence about, at least if you give it a go, whether you don't make it through or you do,
Mm.
it kind of really solidifies, okay, yep, this is, something that I am passionate about, or, I enjoy the gym, but, or I enjoy living a semi-life bodybuilding lifestyle, but it's not my thing, because at least you've given it a go.
Definitely. And I've spoken to plenty of girls who have made that decision. Um, but I think I'm a little bit addicted to the bikini and the tans. I might be sticking around for a while.
That's funny. So, how much do you think, how beneficial do you believe, like, your study and your knowledge in exercise sports science, and, what you're doing with medicine, how well do you think that has kind of helped you, like, within your prep, and also helped you just with your knowledge of, like, I guess, understand, because, we got to understand ourselves and, how our body works, but then, I guess, taking that extra level of actually understanding the biomechanics, or, all the other health areas, how much of a benefit did you find having that knowledge gave you?
Yeah, so I think it was really, yeah, I think it was really important because it allowed me to look at the information that I was receiving in a critical way.
Mhm.
And then I also had the skills to read the research that would either support or refute that information
Yeah.
that I was getting. So I felt as though I was then able to sort of optimize my different protocols, so the when I got injured, I was able to change the exercises that I was doing, make sure that I was still able to effectively train my muscles, and then the adjustments that I made with my peak week protocols as well. I think that was all a result of the education that I had, so I was very grateful
Yeah.
to have that backing me through my prep.
I guess it kind of really gives you that extra boost of confidence in, your decision making, because it's not like, kind of going in a bit blind, and, or, you at least, you have the facts, or the real scientific information, if you want to word it that way, to kind of back you up on the decisions, so at least you kind of have an expectation of what may happen with your choice of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that's also what gave me like the confidence going forward to decide to do my own prep.
Yeah.
Because I know now that I've got like an arsenal of information, so I can just use any of that. And the nutrition course that I'm currently doing as well has like individual modules on bodybuilding too.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yeah, so that was really great. I learned a lot about peak week protocols from that Mac nutrition module. So I'm keen to sort of go through more and yeah, finish that degree next year, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. No,
Yeah.
I think it's good when you kind of you already have that passion for health, that passion for medicine, and you did think about doing nutrition to begin with before, being swifted the other way. So I guess yeah, it's not, you already kind of are an academic person, so the passion's there for the knowledge to one, help yourself, and then something that I want to touch on, which is you wanting to do some coaching,
Yeah.
and then plus having that passion, and then having the will to enjoy the academic side of it. I guess it makes like learning one more fun and a lot more easier.
Yeah, 100%. I remember there were times where I was preferencing like researching about bodybuilding stuff and muscle hypertrophy over like studying for my exams. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm obsessed.
That's funny. That's so good.
Yeah.
So something you said, your injury, that's what I wanted to say. So did you get injured pre-prep, during prep? Well, I didn't know about that. What kind of
Yes,
explain
I
that?
actually had, they weren't severe injuries.
Okay.
Um they were, yeah, sort of mild to moderate that did restrict the exercise selection and the type of movements that I could do. So I had a shoulder impingement slash upper trap strain. And then I also had a hip impingement. So that basically just meant that I was unable to do any overhead pressing.
Hmm.
Um, so I had to make a lot of modifications to how I was training shoulders, as well as reduce volume significantly, because I think that contributed quite a lot to the injury. And then with my shoulder impingement, I had to basically remove most of my hip hinging movements. So I was literally restricted to doing like 4 movement patterns for a good proportion of the prep. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was really, really difficult mentally because obviously if you're just doing those same four
Yeah.
kind of exercises, it's mind numbing. But at the end of the day, I was just like in damage control mode. Like I just need to get through the prep while still training and just to maintain the amount of muscle that I have while I'm still shredding.
Yeah.
And then focus on recovery once prep was
Hmm.
over. So now that I've got a lot more calories in me, I've started to reintroduce some of those movement patterns and it has just been awesome.
Exciting to see that change.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just I miss things like hack squat so much.
It's funny though, like it's really interesting to see like when things like that, like we kind of, I guess, can take for granted sometimes, and it's not until whether it's an injury or like you're saying with COVID. Like I remember that close to almost a year, 6 months, like I didn't train because I couldn't find anywhere to train. That there was like all gyms were closed, and like
Mm.
I didn't realize like how much the gym actually meant to me until that occurred, and like how much like I missed it, how much it kept my sanity. So it was like and then going straight back into it, I remember I was like, oh, I'm eating lots of food, so my strength should be all right. So I went into like my first session, not taking it easy. And I just remember like 3 days after the DOMs, like I trained chest, I actually thought I like tore my pec or something. Like the DOMs I had was just disgusting. And it was just like, okay, maybe I need to slow back down. And then it was just kind of like you're saying that when we remove something and then we don't have it, we can miss it, and then when we get it back we can realize how important those things are to us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I definitely missed the variation in the training. So yeah, it's good to have that back.
So with that, then I'm intrigued. So what is your leading forward? Okay, I guess we can blend it into this. So leading forward with I guess improvement season, off season, however long that may last,
Mm.
and I guess with the kind of the contradiction with the judges' feedback, what is kind of the plan on how you want to kind of improve your physique, and what is your opinion on, I guess, with the science backing that you have of, exercise selection? So like, do you believe in doing, let's say, like, those full movements? I don't know how long you do them, but if, like, for example, for me, like I'll do like a set block of exercises, and I'll do that for, you know, 12 to 16 weeks, and really try and get the max progressive overload out of it. And then, then, okay, if this one's still moving, I'll keep that in, but I may move that to the second exercise, and I'll then add this in. Like, is that kind of how you have found works good for you, or what way do you kind of like? Because I know some people, my friend, like he will rather change exercises every 4 weeks. Like he gets too bored.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a
So
lot of questions in one. Sorry.
no, that's okay. So in terms of the plan for improvement season, despite I think I tried to kind of decipher what the judges want. So I think what I'm just going to try and do is increase the overall size of my legs in general.
Mhm.
So I did notice that a lot of the girls who were in first call out for nationals, they just had better developed
Yeah.
legs. So they had larger quads, larger hamstrings. So I have definitely shifted a focus towards those parts of my legs. And I still have glutes
Yeah.
sprinkled through, but that's kind of like my second or third movement of
Mhm.
the session. So I'm prioritizing quads and hams. And then with upper body, just developing overall size. So again, I noticed that a lot of the girls had much more developed shoulders. And now that I've sort of rehabilitated my injury, I'm hoping that I'll have more of a stable base so I can build those up a lot more. And then just working on my lats to emphasize like the
That shape. Yeah.
yeah. So I think just putting on overall size everywhere is a good place to start. And in terms of how I'm going to do that, so I normally do 6 to 8 week training blocks. But similarly to what you said, I don't overhaul the entire program after 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I just keep my favorite kind of compound movements. So like it'll be a shoulder press. Like I always have lateral raises. RDLs, hip thrusts. Like I've got my bread and butter exercises. And then, like you said, I kind of just change the order of them, or I change the accessory exercises that I use depending
Yeah.
on what I want to bring up more. So throughout prep, I did a lot of cable hip abductions because I wanted to bring up my glute
Yeah.
med. So I'll kind of do a similar kind of thing. And I think I might even like sprinkle in a little bit of arms just to get a little bit more bicep and tricep definition in that like side booty pop. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do. But I think I'll just need to make sure that I progress my programs well so that I
Yeah.
don't overload myself too soon. I think that's the whole balance with bodybuilding. It's just trying to manage your injuries and make
Yeah.
sure you don't hurt yourself again.
Yeah. Just to kind of keep that longevity going, so you can really prime everything.
That's it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's funny, like when you look at someone's physique, like for example, like when I looked at your physique when I first saw it, and I was like, really blown away. I thought you had, great shape. I thought you did have really great glutes, great ham tie-in. I thought you had that good ratio with the broad shoulders. So it's interesting to hear, and I guess this is, I guess, still the learning curve that I'm having with understanding the bikini class and what they're looking for. Because to me, I guess, for you, like what you're saying, needing to grow in all areas like that. And I guess that makes sense with, if you grow your quads and your hamstrings a bit, then, it may make the glutes not be at, when they are full, so then you can have that glute tie ham, and they won't look overpowering in comparison to, your quads and hamstrings. But where do you draw this line between then getting out of proportion, or you start stepping into, I guess, the new, wellness category? Because I guess, like, for a male, in open bodybuilding, you kind of, there is no real limit. Like with classic, it's more based on structure, but outside of that, it's this, you either get bigger, or you stay around a certain size because of a weight cap. So how do you kind of balance that, get the growth while not, change your physique too much to then, not be in the category anymore?
Yeah. I think genetically I am capped, if that makes sense. So if I'm to keep natural, I don't think that I would be able to gain enough muscle mass that would push me into a wellness category, just because I'm naturally
Yeah.
such a small framed kind of person, and it's really difficult for me to build.
Mhm.
So I remember I was chatting to one of the girls backstage at the nationals, and we were talking about how it's really easy for you to shred, or it's really easy for
Yeah.
you to build, and it's so hard for girls to be both. And unfortunately for me, it's really easy to shred. So building muscle and being able to put on enough muscle mass to push me into that other category, I don't think it's actually genetically
Visible. Yeah.
possible. But in saying that, I would just, like always, be weighing myself, taking progress photos, and just sort of assessing those to make sure that I wasn't getting out of proportion. And yeah, because ultimately in bikini, you do want your upper and lower body to be balanced.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just making sure you monitor that and pull back if you need to.
No, that makes sense. I guess when, we're saying that, to me, that kind of is more of a benefit, I guess. I guess from a, just in general point of view, yes, it would suck. I think I'm in a similar boat too, that, building muscle is a lot harder, and it does suck. But I guess at least, you're able to, you don't have to, because, you are natural, and, if you're not wanting to go that other side, at least, that as hard as you can push yourself, with your physique, you're never gonna kind of have to worry about, maybe, kind of like you're saying, get into that wellness, because you don't have to worry about your legs or your glutes getting way too big, because you kind of, are at that limit of kind of genetic shape slash ratio. So, you cannot just kind of evolve slowly, bigger delts or bigger legs to match the glutes. But you know what I mean? Like you kind of, it's that, I guess, that flip side of that, it's more of a benefit, I guess, than a negative in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And
Yeah.
like season B next year, that's only 12 months away. And 5 of those 12 months, you're in a deficit again. So you've got 7 months to grow, and realistically, you can't really grow that much in that time. So yeah, having that genetic cap, I suppose, is good in that sense.
And because the other country to that is that Tim McKinnon, he posted the other day, and he was saying about for bikini athletes, because he's got a few bikini athletes, and he was saying, I really liked it too, the importance of, for a bikini athlete, not needing to bulk so excessive like every other category, because that can then hurt things like your waist, or stuff like that. So I guess another thing, being able to stay shredded easily, like you're saying, I guess it means you may have to take more food to grow in the right areas, but at least you can know that you're always kind of going to sit in that happy middle place, I guess. You're not going to have to worry about maybe putting on too much weight,
Yeah.
and then, like, losing your small waist, or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, yeah. It's really important, like, especially if you're doing consecutive seasons, or like season A, season B, or two season Bs, you need to make sure that you don't put on that much body fat, because then you end up having quite an aggressive calorie deficit when you're prepping, and then you end up losing a lot of muscle during that process. And like, that's probably the worst thing that could happen.
So are you choosing to kind of like, is that your goal to kind of stay natural, kind of throughout your, hopefully your career, a long career?
Yeah, look, I think that for my personal goals, I think it is like I think that I will definitely stay natural,
Yeah.
only because I sort of got into bodybuilding as a way to kind of push myself and my natural abilities. It's never really been something that I've considered. And I think one of my goals with training in general is longevity. And
Yeah.
I think that using performance enhancing substances, I think that that compromises that goal only because it has such significant physical and mental side effects. So I just don't think it aligns with what I want out
Yeah.
of training and bodybuilding. And that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, of course, because my thought of that was, I do, in comparison to every other division, I do feel, bikini is very genetic based, and I don't think, and not a knock to anyone that may use, performance enhancing drugs in bikini, but I think that, it is a division that you can get away with not doing it. I feel like with the way men's physique and that's going, and, just, wellness figure, all that, with the amount of muscle that is needed, it is understanding at a top level, that may be the route. But I can see with having, genetically gifted in bikini, because it's not necessarily about, you still want to get a certain amount of muscular level, but it's still, it's meant to be, I guess, to the ordinary viewer, tameable. So I
Yeah.
guess, I think it is that physique where you can get away with not doing that. And I guess that's where that genetic gift kind of comes into it.
Yeah, I remember watching a YouTube video on this by an American coach, and he said in the bikini division you need either time or PEDs in order to develop your physique. And I've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So
That the time's on your favor. Because
yeah,
you're only young, and that's very true. Like, they say, it's funny. It's something that, like, I keep getting reminded of constantly is, we kind of want the dream physique, or, we kind of want to win, or we want to look a certain way, but it's like that constant reminder of, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I cannot, like, express that enough, because the reality is, like, I'm only 23, and it's just like, I definitely don't think my genetics are, compared to people that I know are the best. And, I'm always kind of like envious. I'm like, fuck, I just want to look like this. Why is it taking me so long? But it's like, I'm only 23. Like, it is known that, especially for male competitors, you really hit your stride and your prime from like 30, 31, 32, all the way to, like, 37, 38. So it's just like,
yeah,
I still got like almost 10 years before that, So it's just kind of like, and I think that, that also applies to, everybody, you
yeah,
know, it's a weird thing, because you kind of in that perception that, oh, my body's meant to start to decrease, so how can I be in my prime at that age? But, I guess it's kind of that flip side of, also people not in the sport or the industry don't, realize that. I think if you approach bodybuilding correctly, it can be really healthy, because there are so many benefits to exercise. Of course, you have the extremes about dieting, and that's, the unhealthy side of it. But as a whole, you can kind of, I guess, understand where being older, you're giving your muscle that maturity that it needs to kind of really take form, or create that high level physique, if that makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. Well, you can just look at Emma Bowman, right?
Yeah, just on a pro card.
Yeah, she's 41 and she's gotten her pro card. Like,
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's so much time and so much of your life that you can devote to building muscle. And yeah, ultimately having that muscle maturity is what is going to be most impressive on stage. And you could see that with her physique.
Yeah.
Like she was such a standout at both the Queensland Nationals
Mm.
as well as
Then,
overseas.
yeah. No, it's because
My idol.
no, it was really exciting. I was so excited to hear that Australian had actually taken out the pro card win over there. So it was awesome. We had quite a few girls, even Tabby Knight. She won first timers or novice, and then the open class. I'm pretty sure she won. Yeah, so that was amazing. And then Mullet came fifth in the open class, and then we had one of other Troy's girls. I can't think of her name. And then there was actually quite a few actually, the more I think about it. It was like six we had six athletes over. So that's also exciting to see more athletes going overseas, more opportunity. Do you think
Absolutely.
that's something that you would kind of do? Would you like to go overseas and do a couple of shows or on the
Yeah,
bucket list?
I would absolutely love it. I've actually been watching the girls' Instagram stories and I'm having so much FOMO. I wish I was over there. But yeah, I'd love to compete in like America or Japan, maybe next year or the year after. Um, I think that after doing nationals up in Brizzy, just having like 4 days of holiday afterwards, it was just the best time ever. And so I kind of want that, but
Overseas.
another level, yeah, overseas and for like 2 or 3 weeks or
Yeah.
something. Because yeah, it was just like I think honestly, those few days post show was probably the best time that I had
Yeah.
this entire year. So I'm ready
No,
to
that's awesome.
yeah.
It's that saying, the best time to be a bodybuilder is I think what was it? I think it was 8 to 5 weeks out, and then it was like the 2 3 weeks post show because you
Ah,
just
it must be.
because you're like in the 8 to 5 weeks out, you're getting enough food where you're not starving. You look good because all your lines and everything coming through, and then post show, you can eat whatever you want. You just all the hard work's done, but you're still gonna look good.
100%. Yeah, I definitely felt that.
Last kind of topic before we kind of wrap things up is kind of jump back to wanting to start your online coaching. So have you started that, or that's something that you're kind of working towards with while you're studying at uni at the moment?
Yeah, so I actually started doing Gen Pop online coaching at the beginning of this year, so in
Okay, yeah.
January. So I actually was at home sick with COVID, and I decided that I was just going to do it. So I
Yeah.
had been thinking about it for a really long time. And then I just eventually decided to set up an ABN and just
Mhm.
do it because who cares if you fail,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like as an online coach, you don't really have that many outgoings, like outgoing amount of money that you need to spend in
Yeah.
order to establish the business. So I was like, if it fails, it fails. But
Mm.
if it does well, then at least I'm doing something that I absolutely love. And it ended up growing, and I've got like a whole bunch of clients now. And after doing a prep, I'm now sort of thinking like I would love to move into the competition prep side of things as
Yeah.
well. Because I just feel as though there's not that many there's not that many coaches out there that have university education and are able to look at the research in the way that someone with a university education can. So I definitely want to move into that kind of area and be a point of difference in the
Yeah.
industry.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I think that's, one, really important, two, really exciting. Um, it is something that I think, because, it's just like in anything, you kind of, you have someone that's, let's say, done a cert 3 or a cert 4, and then you have someone that has their master's or someone that has their diploma or bachelor's, like, the level that they may understand at, can be a lot higher, and not discrediting any form of, self-education through any other forms, but,
Mm.
you know, you I guess, like you're saying, being able to kind of translate, your masters and what you're doing and all that across into, helping people, whether, it's Gem Pop, or even, like you're saying, starting doing prep clients and athletes. Just, I think having that extra knowledge, is really, really beneficial, because I guess it's also, I think the most important factor is you can kind of, explain things from a point of view, from more of a, I guess, an educational point of view, like, how to correctly explain to them what they needed, if that makes sense, like from that educational point of view, I guess, instead of kind of verbatim from something that you've heard from someone else, or, or kind of on a lower level of what you understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like education is such an important part of anyone's coaching, because ultimately that individual is not going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And you have to teach them the skills and the knowledge that they can then use to implement for the rest of their life. Because often, weight loss or building muscle, it doesn't just happen in a year or 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to achieve that and then maintain those results for the rest of your life. So yeah, the education component is really important. And I think it's also just really important that, like, there's constantly new research and new things being found out in the
Yeah, all the
industry.
time.
Yeah, and so like you do have to have that continuing education. So all of those courses that like people are able to do are great, and that's actually a really valuable you need to look out for that if
Yeah.
you're looking for a coach. You need to make sure that they are continuing their education, not just doing their cert 3 and 4 and leaving it at that.
Mm.
Like they need to be constantly upskilling. And I think with the appropriate courses or university degrees, you're able to learn how to really effectively look at new research and then implement that into your practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a skill that you don't necessarily learn in a TAFE course,
Yeah.
but you can learn through experience or doing those upskilling courses.
100%, 100%. Good. That is basically what I was trying to say, but explained way, way better.
It's something I'm so passionate about. So
No, 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 that was amazing. So do you have when is that kind of, have you thought about when you're wanting to kind of open up that space for, whether there is someone listening that, is looking for a coach, and, has enjoyed watching our chat, and, maybe thinking about doing a prep, like, have you started kind of opening that up yet, or that's something that you're going to get ready for next year?
Yeah, so now that my uni year is coming to an end in the next couple of weeks, I'm definitely opening up spots for season A and season B next year. I've already got one of my friends who I will be prepping for ICN, so I'm really
It's
excited to be
exciting.
doing that with her. But yeah, I'll definitely be opening up spots in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, you heard it first here, so look out for that. And I think, another thing on that, I think it's important to, start with Gen Pop, kind of like what you were doing anyway, because, I think as bodybuilders, because we're so focused on bodybuilding, as a coach, we kind of, forget, I think the biggest influence in fitness industry, or just the bit largest percentage is actually general pop, and I think, at the same time, it's always cool too, because if you have that base of general pop, and they trust you, and they seen how well the education you have and how well you guys work together, they may be influenced enough to then transition, and then you're offering something like a prep in that, and then you even have some of your general pop clients kind of transfer over, and then at least you already kind of have that experience with them, or have that knowledge, and it
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier than, I guess, because it's important to kind of learn an athlete's body, or learn what they like, everything that kind of works, and that takes time.
Yeah, and as well, just knowing like what their mindset is like. So knowing how they are with adherence, and how like what their internal dialogue is like, and what they sort of put themselves down about, or things that they celebrate. So I think it's really important to have that kind of like rapport and trust with a client before you do go into prep as well, because ultimately they need to be honest with you. They need to be able to tell you and feel comfortable to tell you when they slip up with their diet, so that you can make the appropriate adjustments to make sure that doesn't affect the end product.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just really important to have that relationship before starting a prep.
No, I couldn't have said better. Last thing, and then we'll wrap it up. So were you kind of saying before that we will be seeing you on stage season B next year?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Well,
awesome.
I don't want to say
Hopefully.
definitely because you don't know
Yeah,
what's going to happen, but
fingers crossed.
I have my countdown in my phone for season B next year. Let's just say that.
Exciting, exciting, exciting. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how you evolve and what that new package you're going to bring. Because you're not going to disappoint. I don't believe that. So I'm excited what happens.
I'm really excited as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you for having me. It was great chatting.